Hello everyone. I want to show you this beautiful game from the 47th Soviet Championship that took place in Minsk, 1979. With the white pieces is Evgeny Sveshnikov, and with the black pieces is a young Garry Kasparov. Now, this Soviet Championship was a Category 12 championship that took place in between November 29th and December 27th, 1979. And 18 of the top Soviet grandmasters participated. Uh, uh, the name a few: Geller, Efim Geller, Yusupov, Kasparov, Yuri Balashov, Tal, Dolmatov, of course, Sveshnikov, just to name a few. Very strong tournament. And interestingly enough, the tournament was won by one of the old school Soviet GMs, Efim Geller. And those of you not familiar with Geller, he had won his other Soviet championship all the way back in 1955. So he hadn't won a Soviet championship in all these years, and this was Geller's last hurrah. But he showed that even past his prime, that he still, had the skills. He still had what it takes, and that must have been a sweet win to win over all those young players many years later. So in this position here, Garry Kasparov has the black pieces, and Sveshnikov has the white pieces. Black to move, Garry opts to trade the rooks here. This position comes out of an Alpine Sicilian, by the way, which started with the moves c3. So e4, c5, and c3 is how the game started. Rook c2. So the other set of rooks come off. And now here is the position we want to start at and discuss. Now it looks like a really simple endgame, right? Headed for a draw. Uh, Same color bishops, kings, pawn structure is symmetrical, except that white has a bit more space on the king side. All right, and the reason why I didn't go start from the opening is because, again, this is a pawn structure that can arise out of anything, and just a general pawn configuration that you should know something about. And I didn't want you to be thinking about the opening. So here we go. So here's two experienced grandmasters, at least Sveshnikov at the time, being a little older than the young Kasparov, but Kasparov was very strong at the time. It was over 2,500. So what can we say about this position? Um, of course, you have the open C and D files. Of course, C file definitely being open as a result of the Sicilian. These are just things that you should always think about when analyzing a position. Things, open files, basically the features of the position, diagonals. Basically how are your pieces getting around? Um, Looking at the space, white has a space advantage right on the king side, so that's an important feature in the end game. So the position is pretty equal. Both kings are pretty close to the center. All right. Both kings need two moves to basically get to central locations. And but remember, it's black to move, so he can move his king first. So that's important, to recognize whose move it is, of course. And another very important feature is, and it's super important here, is the color of the bishops. You have two dark square bishops here, but then notice what color the pawn chain from h2 to e5 is. Alright, so all the pawns are on dark squares except that pawn on f3. But naturally, that pawn is probably going to need some support on e5 at some time or another, and the move f4 will probably be made. This has the effect of diminishing the power of the bishop, white's a dark square bishop, and it puts all those pawns on the dark squares, which um, is good for black for having attacking chances later. And all of these things should go into your thought process, especially if you're black and if you're white. How to deal with that problem should it arise. Should you be trying to put your pawns on light squares, for instance, trying to get the pawns on h3 and g4, for example, and maybe just try to defend that one pawn on e5? Should you be trying to sack it? All these things should be going through your mind here. All right. Now, black, just concentrating on black since it's Gary's move. What he wants to do is try to move his king to the center as immediately as possible and attack the e5 pawn. So black wants to get his king to the center immediately and, of course, attack the e5 pawn, which is isolated by itself at this point and is not, been protected. And, of course, white wants to do the same thing. So what's the conclusion in this position? The conclusion is that the position is equal, but black has chances. So black has more chances just because of the pawn configuration on the king side than white does. So white has to watch his step a little more than black. So let's continue on. Kasparov made the obvious move. I hope it's obvious. It's king c6, just moving toward the center. Now here, experienced Grandmaster Evgeny Sveshnikov, he anticipates the attack on e5, so he plays the move, automatic, natural-looking move f4. However, it's not necessary. It's probably better to move the king to the center. Okay, it's not necessary right at this moment. Why not play king d3 first? And then play can go perhaps bishop c5. And let's say we get some trade-offs here. And now f4. Let's say h6. And the play is still equal here. In these formations too, you have to know your pawn structures and be careful of this type of formation from white. Some people call it a grip formation, where you have the pawn on h4, e5, and just this exact situation where you have more space and you can usually break through. For example, from this position, right? Let's say white has just played this move g4. And let's just make some ignorant moves for black. So black plays b5. White is winning here already. There's no way to stop a white from creating a passed pawn. For example, f5. Let's make the obvious move. E takes f5, check. G takes f5. And then there's going to be a queen after, one of these pushes. Either e6 is going to be played, or you play the move f6 at some point, and if black is dumb enough to play this move, then h takes. But this is going to be the winning move, either this or f6 at some point. If b4, for example, here's f6, all right, and again, there's no way to stop a passed pawn. Obviously, the threat is just to take, so g takes f6, e takes f6, and let's just, again, make a dumb move, e5, then g5. And now this is forced, and then the h-pawn queens. So this structure in general, we have to be very careful not to allow white to get that, like if you're playing. And I just wanted to show you that structure, because then you can understand the variations that take place in the game. So just remember this. That if you're white, yeah, you would like to get that. And if black, you want to prevent that from happening. So going back to the game, Evgeny played f4, and now Kasparov played b5. This frees up the king from defending the b pawn. So he makes sure his pawns are on light squares, and now he can continue to the center. However, after king d3, king d5. So Sveshnikov's kind of a tempo behind here because he had made this move earlier. All right, but he's still okay. All is not lost. But again, like I said, it's black who has the chances. If anybody has chances, it's so white just has to be careful. He has to understand that he's not better here, but that he is in a precarious situation. He just has to play accurately. So here, Sveshnikov is going for that formation that I was telling you about. He wants to play, if he had it his way, he would play h4 and say black will play h6 and he'll have g4. So this was what Sveshnikov is trying to get right now. He's trying to go for it with that, get that grip formation. So this h4, but of course Kasparov knows what's going on. He plays h5, not only stopping and preventing that idea, but he fixes the pawns. He makes sure the pawns are fixed on the dark squares. Okay. if Evgeny tried to do it this way, so for instance g4 and then play, of course he can't do it here, but just bear with me. If he was able to get h4 and then set the position up like that, well, here again you could thwart the idea by just playing g5. Notice that after f takes g5, then the e pawn drops. Okay, so you have to be on point in these end games and understand what your opponent's trying to do. That's why it's important to understand these type of structures, so you don't just drift into a lost position. All right, so back to it. h4, h5 from Kasparov, and now bishop f2 from Evgeny. Of course, he doesn't want to move his king. He doesn't want to allow Kasparov to penetrate into the position. Kasparov plays bishop b5, bishop b4 here. b3. Okay. And now Kasparov plays the move g6. Now, this move g6, it's okay. It's not a bad move because, again, Kasparov is better here. So it's not like he, made some kind of losing blunder. It's just not the most effective move. He had a quicker way to play here. First of all, famous chess coach Dvoretsky had said that g6 was a mistake, that Kasparov should have kept the pawn on g7 so that at some point he could play the undermining move f6, f7, which, it's hard to argue with that idea. However, even faster is just bishop c5. And the reason is because the bishop endings, the king and pawn endings are lost for black, for white. I'm sorry. So this means that white would have to avoid this trade. Let me just show you how. For instance, if bishop takes, right, and Evgeny goes into a pure king and pawn ending, king takes c5, and so now you have this issue of this penetration over here. So let's say make a natural type of move, king c3. a5, say a3, plays little cat and mouse against king d5. Right now you're threatening to run over here all of a sudden. King d3, and then this is when you hit with the dagger. a4, and now You open it up. You open up the the can, so to speak, and now you'll be able to penetrate in one of these, either the king side or the queen side. So, for example, if king c3, right, he tries to hold it together, you just duck in there. That's a wrap. If he goes here, just trying to hold on. B takes a4, B takes a4, and then king c3, same thing. King e4, it's a wrap. So you can see the zugzwang effect. The last choice would be b4, and this is when you surprise your opponent, and you use that last pawn move in reserve to take the opposition away from your opponent. And this is where he starts crying and stuff, and he has to move the king, either back here, allowing the penetration, or for instance, king here, and then it's gonna be over shortly, or he just starts sacrificing material. Okay, so that's why all the king and pawn endings are lost. Going back to bishop c5, that means Sveshnikov will have to come off this diagonal and play bishop e1. But after bishop e1, you just play b4. All right, and now black has white in zugzwang. So for instance, if this bishop moves, say to d2 or something like that, this bishop swoops in here and starts eating up these pawns. That's why it's important to recognize the features. Remember how I said at the beginning that the pawns being all on dark squares is good for black, because they might not mean anything at that moment, but it's later on when it's important. So this bishop is tied down to this e1, the h4 diagonal. The only other move is to move the king. Right, the king can't move here because the bishop is guarding that square. So the king must either go here, the c2 or d2. And we already know what happens. The king, after that move, I just move here. The king just walks on in. So let it be known for the record that bishop c5 basically just shuts white down on the spot. Okay, so Dvoretsky said, to preserve, not play g6, maybe play a move like bishop a5 or something like that. But bishop c5 is the move, period. Anyway, Kasparov played g6. The important thing is, even if you don't play the best move, don't play a losing move or a move that gives away the advantage. All right, this move may prolong the game. Okay, give Sveshnikov some breathing room, but at least Kasparov didn't blunder away the game. King e2. And even here, Kasparov could have penetrated with the king, played king e4 or something. But here, he decided to play bishop c5. So now, perhaps he saw the idea at this time. And Sveshnikov, again, experienced grandmaster, goes right into the lost ending. Bishop takes c5. And so it's basically the same ending I showed you. However, the difference is Kasparov now does not have this extra pawn move at the end, g6. Okay, so Sveshnikov probably looked at it and figured that he could draw here. Of course, instead of going to that pawn ending, he should play a move like bishop e3. And at least if Kasparov takes, he has good drawing chances. Okay, because there's no way to get in the position. Of course, Kasparov wouldn't take. If bishop e3, then you would avoid. It's best to avoid the trade and try to keep things going. But again, the game goes on. Okay, it's not 100% clear. White still has to. Black still has to work in this position. Here, bishop takes c5, king takes c5, and now king d3. And of course, he's hoping to be able to draw. King b4, king c2, king a3, king b1. A5, king A1. Kasparov plays A4. B takes A4, and now king takes A4. It's very important to understand these nuances. If B takes A4, it's just a draw after that. There's no way to make progress. All right. Sorry about the speed right there. But you just go back and forth because what it is, the basic concept is that in this position, black now can't run over here because he has to worry about losing this pawn. And as long as white has this pawn protected, he always will threaten to queen. That's why this position is a draw. Black cannot run over to the king side. So that would be a colossal blunder. Instead, the idea is to keep the white king on the first rank and then immediately just waltz over after the pawns are traded off. So king takes A4, king B1. What else is he gonna do? He has to go back and forth to protect this pawn. King A1, B4. He's just waiting. King B1, B3, and here Sveshnikov just resigned. Again, there's no stopping it. Again, so for example, after B3, A takes B3, and of course, if King A1, just bishop takes A2, and then white is in Zug's way again and just has to start giving up pawns. Right? It's not a stalemate because he can still move his G and F pawns, but he would just be lost. So after B3, A takes B3, king takes B3, and they would just just this waltz over to the weak king side pawns, and that's all she wrote. So I hope you enjoyed that. It was an instructive game, and it's important to know about this position right here with white and black to know how to play against it and to basically be able to see it ahead of time before it actually happens to you. It's funny too because in the Spassky variation of Caro-Kann where white plays his pawn up to H6 early in the game, in the Caro-Kann, a lot of endgames wind up falling into that grip scenario, and so black has to always be mindful of those type of those pawn structures that can be very very dangerous to white. I'm sorry, I said H6. I meant to say H5 in a Caro-Kann. The H5 is played real early. So this is important formation to know. And the other thing I wanted to say in closing is that, again, these positions often, Kasparov played King C6 there. These positions often look so innocent and innocuous. Okay, and the key thing here in these endings is focus. You gotta focus. You can't relax. It looks simple, right? You just see it looks so simple and drawerish. Everything is pretty much symmetrical, but there's little features in the position like the pawns being on dark squares. Sveshnikov playing F4 when maybe he should have just came in with the king first. Just little features like that because he's one tempi closer to the center. And the important feature right here, right? Remember, Sveshnikov played F4. The important thing to remember here is after King D3, Kasparov cannot play King D5 right away because that pawn needs to be protected. All right. So let's say, for example, he plays B5. Okay, this is better for white. Then white can just step in here. Now white is the one the upper hand. Okay, again he has the chances now because now this pawn is protected and he can reorganizes pawns. For example, play moves like G4, you know, and get his pawns on the light squares, etc. All right. So just little stuff like that change the whole evaluation around. Not that white is winning, but white has dramatically improved his situation. So of course not b5 there, but if um if Genny played king d3, then best would probably just be bishop c5, offering the trade there. Bishop takes, king takes, and now you play a move like king e4 again, not being too afraid. Okay, and then you can go for your grip position again. But of course, if black knows what he's doing, he'll be able to stop that, and then the game probably will then for instance h6. Then the game may teeter out to a draw or something like that. C4, g4. You just throw something like that in there. But all right, sorry about that interrupting. But okay, so yeah, that's basically it. Um, Again, stay on point, and even in end games that look real simple, you just see an example where veteran grandmaster, just made a couple of simple mistakes. One being f4, the other being going into that lost going into this lost king and pawn end game trading. So if they can do it, it definitely can happen to you. So I hope you enjoyed that. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video.